What's up, everybody? What's up, college football fans? We're going to have us a quick show today. I'm running behind the eight ball all the way to Dallas, and I'm glad you tuned in. Bobby C here. We got a special guest. Well, he's not so special anymore, but he's always a special guest on my show, and we're going to talk about some gambling. There's got to be some of yous out there that are needing to pick up some extra change. Well, we're here to help you out. We got none other than Couch Coach. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, sir? Good to be back.
Well, that's good. You gonna help us make some money? I'm looking up that list, the Vegas odds on my phone. I know you've got it there. I'm gonna look mine up, and I'm just gonna let you take
Sure.
over the show and talk about the SEC, the point spreads, and what you think, and then I'll chime in if I hear you say something interesting or something I disagree with. So, have at it, buddy.
Sure. Well, obviously, it's a lot of neutral site games going on next weekend. Clearly, probably during the year, most of these predictions tend to get made on Thursday, but because it's just so far out, and because you got a lot of things going on, we decided to do this a little bit earlier than normal. But a lot of good SEC matchups, three in particular that are on neutral sites, and then, of course, a ACC matchup of interest, at least to us in the South, because let's face it, Southern football is better than any other football in the country, regardless of what all those Ohio State homers want to say. So we could just dig in from there. So I'm looking at Tennessee and West Virginia. Obviously, that's a big game coming up. We have Auburn and Washington. We have Alabama and Louisville. And then we have Florida State versus West Virginia. No, I'm sorry, Florida State versus Virginia Tech. So those are games that are kind of interest to our region. I didn't know what your thoughts are on some of those.
Well, I tell you the one that kind of jumped off at me. It's not necessarily. Well, there's two games. One that's in conference. This is aside from my team. The West Virginia Tennessee game was the Alabama Louisville game. The Florida State Virginia Tech game. Those two, I just got a feeling that I don't know what the spreads are. I'm trying to look them up. You sent that link to me. Let's go over the Florida State Virginia Tech game, because there's a lot of
Right.
unknowns there. We got a new coach at Florida State, and we've got a coach in Virginia Tech that's been there a while, that's starting to make some moves. I think he's got a good program going over there. So there's a lot to
Yeah.
go on in that game. Tell me what you think there.
Yeah, well, Justin Fuente, he's been over at Virginia Tech for the last 2 years. Had a pretty decent season in 2016. I think they got to the ACC championship game. They did. And now he's trying – it's going to be between them and Miami for the Coastal this year. And they're starting off with Florida State, which is really pretty different, because a lot of times they don't really start off with a in-conference kind of game like this. You're right. They're breaking in a new coach over at Florida State. It's really just an unknown about what that team is going to do this year. You got to figure that they still have a lot of talent based on the recruiting classes that they had, but for some reason it just fell apart there for Jimbo at the end. I know they lost their quarterback Francois for the year, but even so, they still shouldn't have fallen off the map the way they did last year. They finished the season 7-6, which is way below expectation for Florida State. They were 13-1 in 2014. In 2015-2016, they finished 10-3. So this year they're playing Virginia Tech at home. Florida State is, and the line opened up at 7, which usually when I see 7 at home for the favorite, I tend to go with Florida State, or I tend to go with the home favorite, and they usually tend to cover big. I'm talking like 20, 30, 40 points. And the fact that it's kind of moved up to 8.5 makes me kind of lean back towards Virginia Tech. But the fact that the spread for that game is so big is really surprising to me. I thought this game would be about 4.5, maybe 3 even, especially when you got a new coach like that. So I think the perception is that FSU, from a talent standpoint, still just has significantly more talent than Virginia Tech, that they can come in there, they can put it all together for one game and create a blowout. But at that 8.5, if it stays at 8.5 throughout the weekend and throughout next weekend, I like Virginia Tech on that 8.5.
I agree with you. And before we open up the phone lines, we've got one on hold, and I can have up to 4 on hold. And we've got a new sponsor, Couch Coach. I didn't mention at the beginning. It's sponsoring our hotline. It's Allied Oil and Tire. I know we've got some truck drivers out there that watch the show. They're a Midwest regional Class 8 truck tire and oil place. That's where I get all my service done, and they're going to sponsor the show. They've got locations in Omaha, Kansas City, Wichita, Kansas, Des Moines, Iowa, Sioux City, South Dakota, and of course I use the Joplin location. If you're ever in Joplin, go see Brett Black. Tell him Catfish sent you there, and those guys are great. So, got any callers wanted to call in? Call in. You can still hear the show while you're on hold, and we've got one holding, but we're going to get to him in a minute. But I'm agreeing with you on the Virginia Tech. I've got a gut feeling because there's a lot of unknowns with Francois and who they've got at quarterback. I'm going to take Virginia Tech to straight up win that ball game. What do you think about that, Cajones?
Well, just in general, I like just betting on the line. So I
Yeah.
very, very rarely make straight picks. But I mean, that's not a bad play. I mean, considering that they have an established kind of program there, you really don't know what you're getting with Florida State. But again, with Florida State, with that line being as heavy as it is,
Yeah.
that is a little concerning for me. I mean, if it was at 6 or something or 5.5, I would feel more comfortable with that Virginia Tech. But I think if you play them on the line, that's not a bad play.
Yeah, I just think that Virginia Tech has gotten better. I don't even know which direction Florida State is going. I mean, it's Haggart
Yeah.
from Oregon out there. Hey, I think a lot of that is just past reputation from Jim or from Kelly out there, and I don't know how much
Yeah.
he didn't impress me last year at Oregon. I mean, I don't think they set the world on fire. I don't know what kind of coach he is. I guess time will tell. But let's go on to the SEC. Who jumps out at you that you think, man, this is a stone cold lead pipe lock? Who tell me what you put your money on. Where can we pick up a few extra dollars at on these SEC games?
Well, let's just go ahead and get into your game. At the beginning, I think the line for the West Virginia and Tennessee game, I think it started off at 8.5 or 9, depending on what book you looked at. That line has moved to 10 now. So what that's saying is that a lot of people are putting their money heavy on West
West
Virginia.
Virginia.
So yeah, so I would have preferred if it stayed at about 8 or 9 for you guys. But here's what's very interesting about Tennessee is since 2012, you guys have done pretty well in those neutral site games. You really have. Dooley's last year, you guys beat NC State. I want to say it was in Atlanta or something like that. And you beat Georgia Tech last year in Atlanta, and that was like a 42-41 game. Both of those games were pretty high scoring. So when I look at that West Virginia, Tennessee game, I see that over and under on the points at 60, which is really high. Like I thought that would be like at about 50 or 52. So at 60, I like the over on the over and under on the points. Like I think that could be a very high scoring game. Yeah. And now I am worried about the 10 for you guys. If it stayed at about 8.5 or 9, I would like Tennessee on that line. But now it has at 10, I kind of like West Virginia. But I could see it being at about a 38-24, 38-27 kind of a game for West Virginia one way or the other. But I think it's going to be a fairly high scoring game. And I just like the over and under. When I see 60s and 62s, I just have a hard time staying off those kind of over and under. So that's my Achilles heel. And so when I see 60, that seems really high for me considering what Tennessee is working with and some of the questions that they have on offense with their offensive line, the quarterback. So it could even be a deal where the Tennessee's offense might score some more points, or maybe the defense or special teams get some more points there than you think. So just basing off it right now, if it stays at 10 or 11, I like West Virginia. But I do like the over on that game, and I think it might be fairly high scoring.
Well, you're saying they have West Virginia favored, obviously. Here's what I think. Don't bet on your own team, but I just think it's going to be closer than people think. I think our offense is going to be high-powered offense as far as what people are expecting. I think we've got Jawan Jennings coming back, Marquez Callaway. We got Ty Chandler and that Fields of Me, the other running back, a good 1-2 punch. The only thing that I'm worried about is the quarterback and offensive line. Probably more so the offensive line.
Which are big concerns.
Oh, yeah. The offensive line has been
concerns.
Shabby at best the last few years. It doesn't matter who you have back there. It doesn't really, if you can't be protected and you're having to throw that ball even a half a second sooner than you want, it's just everything starts falling apart right there. So I would go with the over.
The thing about,
go ahead.
I think Tennessee, and even with Tennessee last year, I mean, as bad as y'all's offense was, you scored 42 points in that game against Georgia Tech last year. And that went into overtime, didn't it? I'm trying to remember. 42-41, something like that.
Yep.
So, and the same thing, like in 2012, you guys actually had a really good offense. I think Jim Chaney was actually your offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. It's just your defense couldn't stop anything that year. So you had I think it was like a 35-21 game or something. So based on kind of the trend that we're seeing on those neutral sites for you guys, I do think that could be a fairly high-scoring game for you guys.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, we lost and you know who Jawan Jennings is. He broke your heart 2 years ago.
I do.
He was hurt the first part of that game at Georgia Tech, week number 1, and we didn't have him again. Yeah. You can't tell me somebody like Jawan Jennings couldn't have done wonders to a freshman quarterback last year. We got Jawan Jennings back, which I think was a great move. I think, we buried the hatchet with him. He's just a kid. We brought him back. We got Todd Kelly Jr., who was out for a lot of the season last year. We got Nigel Warrior, Dale Carter's son. I just think that we've got a lot of bright spots that people outside of Knoxville, outside of the state of Tennessee, aren't remembering. And we're going to surprise some people. I really, really, really believe it. That's not just me being a homer. I really think that we're a better team starting out at the beginning of this season than we were the last half of last season, just by the personnel we have back that wasn't there the last half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you guys aren't a 4-8 ball club. I mean, that was just Butch losing the locker room and some things there. But I do think that, one of the things I try to remind myself too on a lot of this kind of stuff, it's like, even when I see an over and under, or if I see something that just screams at me, I try to remember, okay, it's just for this week. I try not to make entire season predictions for it. But based on this week 1, that 60 in y'all's game screams at me. So I think that's something that I could see that being a fairly high-scoring game. And honestly, even in that Alabama-Louisville game, no, I'm sorry, actually I think in y'all's game it was like 61 or something like that. And I want to say like, in the Alabama-Louisville game, it's like 60. The over and under for points is 60. So that's really surprising to me. Now, the 20-25 in that game is not surprising. That's about what Alabama's been favored in all those neutral site openers that they've had over the last 6 or 7 years with Nick. But the 60 is surprising because most of the time Alabama wins those games like 34-10 or 38-13, something like that. The defense plays well. The offense kind of grinds it out. They find a way to get it done, even if they're not overly impressive. Now, Nick does pretty well in these games, so I stay off the line. But what's really interesting is that 60-61 on the over and under. Mm-hmm. Because, again, essentially they're saying that not only can they cover, but they're going to cover like 52-20 or something like that, which either means that they believe that Nick is going to score like something like 60 or Alabama's going like 51-7 or something, or even like, well, that wouldn't work. It would be like over 60.
Right.
So that also means that Louisville is probably going to have to score a little bit there too, which shows some concerns about Alabama's defense if it's at 60.
Yeah.
So I think that it could be something where if Tide fans would be interested in looking at this, if it's something where they would be happy with Alabama won like 56-31 or something, and it's a push, and maybe the defense isn't playing as well. Because, Alabama did lose some guys on that defense. And I know they reload and all other kind of stuff, but Louisville's just an unknown. I mean, we don't know what they're operating with at quarterback, and even though they have talent, they're still breaking some guys in on that side of the ball. So I could see that being even a higher scoring game than people think. And what I want to know from Alabama fans and maybe some of these Alabama callers is, would they be okay with a really high scoring Big 12 kind of game like that, or would they be really, really mad about how shoddy that defense is looking maybe in week 1?
Well, Alabama is losing a lot on defense, and I wanted to answer a question. I've got a question that popped up that I noticed. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I'll forget. We're getting old. They asked about why is Chris Winkie, who's one of our coaches at Tennessee, coaching running backs, and he was a former quarterback. Well, here's the story on that Winkie as far as I remember it. We had offered him that job early in the season to be our quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
He turned it down. I don't remember the story behind it. He said, "Hey, I'm not going to take it." So they went ahead and filled it, and then something happened, and he was able to come back to the team, and all that was available was the running backs position, because Gillespie had just left, Robert Gillespie, and I still don't remember what happened to Gillespie, but he made an abrupt quit, and that was a way to fit it in there. But I guarantee you, in the film room, Winkie has to be helping with the quarterbacks. He's got to be in practice. But that's to answer James Barger's question about why is a quarterback coaching running backs. That's the story behind that. And let's go ahead and take a call real quick. We've got a couple of callers. We're going to take one that has been on with us before. He says he has some news according to my screener. And let's see what Mr. Paul Jameson has for us. What do you got for us, Paul? But before you start, we're not going to get into this. Big Ten's better than SEC, but if you've got any other statements to make, we're all ears. Have at it, Paul. What you got for us?
Well, the only way Snurgley let me get through that call line, I had to butter him up a little bit.
Yeah.
So Urban Meyer gets a 3-game suspension, and I'm shocked as an Ohio State fan because they had a press conference, and Urban Meyer should be leaping for joy that he still gets to coach one of the top programs in college football. Instead, he shows up at this press conference, and he acts all arrogant, and he didn't even apologize to Courtney Smith, who was the alleged victim in this domestic abuse case. And that got a lot of people upset, both Ohio State fans and fans across college football. And so then today, Urban Meyer put out a statement apologizing to Courtney Smith, which most people just thought it was a PR stunt that somebody probably wrote for him to post. So there's a lot of turmoil inside the Ohio State community. I know there's a lot of people that are glad this is kind of over with, but right now there's Clemson fans love Dabo Swinney and their program, but right now at Ohio State things are a little uneasy with this whole situation. And we play Oregon State week 1, Rutgers week 2, TCU week 3. So those are the 3 games Urban Meyer won't be coaching. But they made sure to bring him back before the big game that will be week 5 at Penn State.
Yeah, I think with your team, man, that's just a hard situation to gauge. I mean, clearly Ohio State has the talent there, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like you guys are in total rebuild mode, but it's just hard to gauge a team that's kind of going through that kind of situation. It's almost kind of like you're in a holding pattern a little bit to see what develops. I mean, the TCU game is concerning,
Like you said, Butch Jones lost the locker room in Tennessee, last year, and Catfish offered to give him a ride, ride out of town. I just don't know. I just don't like there being fractured within the Ohio State community, that there's so much uneasiness. I like when everyone's unified, but talent-wise, Ohio State, I mean, like we talked last week, their running backs, their quarterbacks, their defense, I mean, on paper, they can play with anybody in the country. It's just emotionally, will they rally around Urban Meyer? There's too many players behind the scenes that are like, this guy's kind of sketchy. You know what I mean? And that's not what you want.
My gut reaction, man, is I think most people feel about Urban. Like, if I'm an Ohio State player, I don't go to Ohio State because I love Urban Meyer, right? Like, I go there because I want to win. So I don't think.
And you're going to be on national TV every other game.
I don't think it's kind of like playing at Alabama. I mean, that Saban's kind of an SOB, but you're going to get exposure, you're going to win, all these other kind of things. So I don't think from a locker room standpoint the team's going to quit on Urban Meyer. But do I think it could affect your playoff chances and top 4? Yeah, I mean that. But again, who knows? I mean, you just have to kind of see how this plays out. This is really kind of a different scenario for everybody.
the other thing I don't like as an Ohio State fan is now Ohio State's kind of become this villain. All the other schools are all, everyone's coming out with all these Ohio State jokes, and everyone's going all anti-Ohio State, thinking that they propagate
do you hate
abusing
that,
women.
Though? Do you hate that, though? Why do you care if you're the villain? I mean, like, some teams embrace the villain role, right?
Because let me explain why I don't like being in the villain role. Because Ohio State got snubbed out of the college football playoff last year, and I don't want to hear
Not
Iowa
this
jokes.
again.
So it was listen. Ohio State had the chance to be the underdog and face the mighty SEC and take down the mighty SEC, where everyone's sick of the SEC outside of people that live in. I live in Georgia. I don't know if you know that.
I agree with that. Yes.
I actually live in Lawrenceville, Georgia. So I live right over, not too far from you. But outside of college football, I have a friend that plays for Washington, Pac-12. People are just sick of Alabama. They're sick of Clemson, even though that's not SEC school, and they're sick of the SEC. And so I feel like Ohio State, if this all didn't go down, if it's an Ohio State versus Georgia Bulldog national championship, or Ohio State Clemson, or Ohio State Alabama, everyone's going to cheer for Ohio State. But now, if you got Ohio State Alabama, I feel like everyone's going to be, cheering against both teams, if you will. So they just shot themselves in the foot with this whole situation.
Yeah, that's just a kind of a difficult thing to gauge, man. I really don't know. I mean, I think these guys are still going to have a decent year and a good season and all that. But I mean, do I think it's something where you might lose a game that you shouldn't, or might go 10-2 or something because of this? Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of feeling along those lines, but who knows? I mean, it just, I don't think you're going to lose the locker room, though. I think that's a little bit too much. But the thing about Urban Meyer is he doesn't stay very long at jobs. Like at Florida, he really wanted to leave after year 5, and they made him stick around to keep that recruiting class in place. But he rarely stays at a job longer than 6 years anyway. So that might be something y'all need to look at too.
Well, the other thing though, he was climbing up the ladder. I mean, you don't get a promotion from Ohio State unless you go to the NFL. But but
even at Florida, I mean, Florida's an elite job. I mean, he could have stayed there as long as he wanted to, probably.
Yeah, but don't compare Florida to Ohio State. Ohio State.
Oh, come on!
Come on, man.
I don't know about that, bro. Bro.
You can't put Florida in the same sentence as Ohio State as an elite program.
Yes,
who's the top elite program?
The last 15 years, yes.
You're talking to Tennessee and a Georgia fan, and we both take Florida, right? I can tell you that Florida in the last 20 to 30 years is every bit Ohio State's equal as a premier job.
Wait. Florida in the last 5 years has beaten more SEC teams than Ohio State has in the last 20. So that's all I've got to say. I think we can move on. Uncle Lou, I don't know if he's in the audience or not, but, come on, man. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to try to change the subject because I don't want to get to, my mom might be watching and I don't want to have something slip up. But at the end of 3 games, you're going to get Urban Meyer back. Where do you think you stand as far as your record-wise? Do you think you're going to be 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3? Where do you think, realistically?
They'll be 3-0. It is going to be a tough game down at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. It's basically a home game for TCU.
Yeah,
but
it is.
With our explosive offense, I just don't think TCU's defense is going to be able to sustain the running attack of Weber and Dobbins carry after carry. And we actually have a passing quarterback now in Haskins, whereas we've had J.T. Barrett, who couldn't throw. He couldn't throw the ball that well.
He couldn't
so
hit the
I think
ocean
they're 3-0.
from the deck of the Titanic. But go ahead, yeah.
There you go. He really couldn't. So the Buckeyes will be 3-0 after Urban Meyer returns. They have a cupcake game against Tulane, and then they have to go to Penn State, 8 o'clock, ABC. Penn State has the biggest stadium. It's even bigger than Neyland Stadium. What's your old stadium? Neyland Stadium?
It's Neyland Stadium. Yes.
They downsized that attendance, though, I heard.
Yes, we did to make more money, and they put those those suites on both sides of the stadium. Yeah, they knocked it down a few thousand to put that in a few years ago.
So Catfish, you're looking at about 110,000 seat stadium night game at Penn State, who we've beat them by 1 point last year. We had to come back and beat them, and we went to the college football playoff, even though they won the Big Ten a couple years ago. So that's going to be a tough game for the Buckeyes. But if they can win that, then I think they're going to have momentum. They got an easy October. They can carry some momentum in November and beat Michigan State and Michigan and be right in the thick of the college football playoffs. So don't count the Buckeyes out yet, but there is turmoil in Columbus. So thanks for getting a Buckeye on the show. And I did want to let your SEC listeners know.
Yeah,
my podcast came
tell
out
them, tell us about your podcast so we can go over there and listen to you and your buddy talk about some delusional stuff about the Big Ten and Ohio State and bust them up. Go ahead and
now listen,
pub your channel.
My buddy JG lives here in Atlanta. And I live in Louisville, so we both live in SEC country, and I like the Georgia Bulldogs. But our podcast, we cover everything about the SEC, but we're realistic. We're realists. And then we cover everything that's going on in college football. My buddy who plays for Washington, he'll be calling in. We try to cover, all the different conferences. Of course, we're Ohio State fans. We're Ohio State homers, so you'll get that vibe listening to the show. But we just want to cover everything about college football.
Well, how do they find your podcast and your YouTube channel? Go ahead and tell everybody.
Buckeye Boys, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are found. It's the Buckeye Boys podcast. That's like Ohio State Buckeyes, Buckeye Boys, the Buckeye Boys podcast. So we'd love to have some SEC.
Yeah,
listeners.
Everybody, all the SEC listeners, go over and bust their chops. What about your YouTube channel? What's that under?
Oh, that's at Paul Jameson. And I don't know if there's any Cleveland Browns fans out there, but I'm going to be covering the Browns this year, which you predicted they're going to the playoffs. So don't get my hopes up. But on my YouTube channel, I cover the Cleveland Browns, Ohio State Buckeyes.
Wait. Let me set the record straight. I said they would flirt with the playoffs. It could very well surprise a few people. I ain't put them in the playoffs yet. Okay.
How about win a game? How about win a game? How about that?
We got Nick Chubb. Come on, Nick.
Yes,
Chubb.
you do got Nick Chubb. Yes, you do.
And Baker Mayfield.
Yes, you do.
But hey, I'll get both of you guys on the podcast. Catfish, you can give us some Tennessee insights, and Couch Coach, you can give us some Georgia insights. So I'll definitely contact you guys privately and get you on the show.
That'll work.
Well, we're going to take another call. Thanks for calling in. Go Buckeyes, yeah.
And Ohio State's a more elite program than Florida.
Okay, whatever. Go drink your Kool-Aid. Well, we've got another caller calling in, and who do we have here on the Volunteer Roadshow, sponsored by Allied Oil and Tire? Who do we got? I guess we dropped a caller. We're going to go to our next caller. We've got... who do we got here on the Volunteer Roadshow, the Allied Oil and Tire hotline? Couch Coach and Catfish.
Hey, Catfish, it's Small Ball.
Small Ball, how you doing, buddy? What you got for us?
Hey, what's up, man?
Man, I got some big news for you guys. And I know that I'm promoting my YouTube channel on here, but and I hate that I'm doing that in front of someone's show. I shouldn't be doing this, but I feel like I need to get it out there.
Go ahead.
So, as you guys know, I attend Jacksonville State University, and they have a radio station down in the communications building, and they are looking for volunteers to contribute for their radio station. And I talked to the program director, and if you guys been watching me on my YouTube channel, Small Ball, you guys been seeing me doing some team previews on the Gridiron Review on my podcast. And surely enough, I am going to be live on the radio from every Friday from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Saturday morning talking NFL, college, and local high school football. And I'm excited about it, and
That's
I hope that you guys
fantastic.
tune in.
Can we stream it anywhere online, or how can we get it?
Yes, you can. It's on I believe just Google 91.9 WLJS FM. Click on the first link of this, of a search, and then it'll say that you can live stream, or click on the live stream of a radio, and you should be able to listen to it. I also believe it's on TuneIn, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's good. So what are you going to be doing for this game? How are you going to watch this game? I know you're visually impaired, but how are you going to consume this game that we play West Virginia and we beat them? Where are you going to be at? Are you going to be at home, at a tailgate?
No,
are you going to the game?
I will be on campus at room 502 in Pinnell, probably raising hell and Cain in my room, yelling and screaming like a maniac. And
That's right.
I'm probably gonna listen to it. I usually listen to my games on the radio. I don't watch TV very much because they don't tell you what's going on. They don't tell you the descriptions very well. I use the radio when I watch games, and when I go to football games, and I know that you guys know my story. If you haven't checked it out, go on Catfish's video, Do It for Garrett. But when I went to these games when I was younger, I also listened to it on the radio. Now, granted, there was a delay, but I still knew what was going on due to what was happening. So, in fact, I got some more insights than other fans did because of me listening to the radio. Like whenever there was a replay or something like that, and they would look at the Jumbotron and they could see a better insight than we could in the stands. So that gave me an advantage to see what was going on there. But, that's pretty much it. I'm just calling to let you guys know to go find me at 91.9 WLJS and tune in to my podcast next Friday. I start next Friday.
We'll definitely do that. I'm very proud of you. I'm not going to let you ever forget that I gave you your first big break. And when you sign with ESPN, don't forget about me. Don't forget about Couch Coach and BVD. We want some tickets or something. Don't forget about us, buddy.
Absolutely, you guys. You guys are the whole reason why I am doing YouTube, and I can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have given me and helped me grow my channel. Even despite the fact that my channel has been taken down several times, I've been saying this all along. YouTube cannot beat me. They're not going to beat me. And I'm going to keep on grinding, and we're going to keep this channel going. And go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new to Catfish. You can find me at Small Ball on YouTube. Just look up Small Ball, SMALL space V as in Victor OL Ball. So,
but before you go, Small Ball, kind of tell everybody what you got to do this summer. You got a chance of a lifetime to intern somewhere, and kind of tell me. I forgot what you said. Who all you got to meet and what you got to do. Tell the viewers of this show what you got to do this summer.
Absolutely. So I had the opportunity to go to 94.5 WJOX in Birmingham, Alabama. It's the ESPN radio station of Birmingham, and I live in Birmingham, and I got to intern with all these guys. I got to intern with Jim Dunaway, Ryan Brown, Ryan Haney, Lance Taylor, Tony Kerr, John Parker Wilson, Odell Greco, all these guys. And I learned a whole bunch about radio this summer. I got to audio produce their shows for a little bit, and I gained a lot of experience out of that. And I feel like this is going to help me when I apply for bigger jobs, and I'll definitely have someone, saying a good reference for me. So that's definitely a step to my advantage.
Well, we're super proud of you there, Garrett, and keep up the good work. And I'll try to tune in to the your radio spot if you remind me. Send me a text of a link I can check out, and
I'll give you one.
Hang in there, buddy.
Know what? Also, don't forget this, you guys. I'll have a call-in portion to the show. So if anyone wants to talk football with me, you can give me a call at my number. I don't have a number yet set up with JSU for a hotline. I do not know their number directly, but I will have that out, and I'll give it to Catfish, and he can give it out to you guys if you guys are interested in calling in and talking some football with me.
Well, we'll definitely do that, and I really appreciate you calling. I'm going to try to take one, possibly two more callers. I don't have a lot of time. I've got to be in Dallas pretty soon. So let's see, who else do we have in here that wants to talk to Catfish and Couch Coach? Who do we got here?
Hello?
Yes, what you got for us, buddy? Who is this?
Oh, it's Mark Johnson. It's Mark Johnson.
No.
I'd like to go into detail about Urban Meyer and about the AP poll, et cetera. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great.
Are you the one that's got Kansas winning the Big 12 and the national championship? Is this the same guy?
No. Kansas is garbage.
Oh,
Who in the hell is that dude?
Last week you had Kansas winning it, so don't give me that.
Hey, no, it wasn't me. I don't know who in the hell you're talking about.
Yeah,
Kansas is awful. That guy is stupid. All right, so I am really – so I want to go in about the AP poll. I'm really mad about it. Want to know why? Where in the hell is Kansas? They should be number one in the nation. Why are they not number one in the nation? Where's UTEP? You know, Tennessee should be number 3. I actually have Tennessee winning 54 national championships in a row after starting next year. Does that make sense? I mean, it just makes complete sense in my opinion because, yes, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Kansas is an elite football team this year. I think they fall off the charts next year, really, because they fire a lot of big, really bad coaches. You know, they're like husky size. They're really bad coaches, you know, and they can't keep a healthy diet. So why in the hell are they working at a...
Does Wilt Chamberlain have any eligibility left? Didn't he play at Kansas? Wilt Chamberlain? I think he did, didn't he? But he's dead.
Yes, he did. Wilt Chamberlain did. Yeah. He's a big dude, man. He's a big guy. I'm almost his height, you know. So, you know, I'm only 15 years old, about 6'2". Well, I'm not almost his height, but I don't care. That's not the business right now, okay? Let's talk about the Urban Meyer deal. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll give you a few minutes, and then I have to cut it short so I can hit the road. But talk about Urban Meyer.
All right. So I think Urban Meyer, he should be absolutely. I don't think it's his fault. You know, actually, matter of fact, I contributed on that case. They hired Jeremy Pruitt, not Urban Meyer, but Ohio State. They don't like Urban Meyer, so they wanted to punish him. So they hired Jeremy Pruitt, the coach of Florida, and Kirby Smart to go and beat wives in Ohio. It's absolutely ridiculous. They even hired players, you know, just like tennis.
What you got there, Couch Coach? I had to cut him off. Was there any other games that we were missing? Who does Florida play?
Auburn, Washington.
All right, let's go over that one.
Auburn, Washington.
What you
so,
got there?
I'm sorry, my brain is defragmenting from that whole comment. So Auburn and Washington. That's the one I feel the least confident about. One, because Auburn's favored by like 2.5 or something in that game.
Where's the game?
Even though they've lost some of these guys, for the NFL. And so I think a lot of people kind of feel like Washington might win this game. Now, Auburn has done pretty well in these neutral site games recently. Well, actually,
where's the game played at?
No, they're going to be playing in Atlanta, that Chick-fil-A Classic or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that's not accurate information. So they lost to Clemson in 2012 in that game, and then they beat Louisville. I think that was 2015. So I'm trying to gauge, the complexion of this Auburn team at 2.5. I'm still kind of leaning towards Washington, but I'm really surprised that Auburn is favored in this game. I really thought Washington would be favored, which kind of leads me to believe that Auburn, maybe even from a talent perspective, with what they're operating with on defense, things like that, and still pull it out. So,
well, they always say you get 3 points for a home field advantage, and that's as close to a home field advantage as you can get for Auburn. So.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's going across country. I mean, if Auburn wins this game, that sets them up pretty good down the road, I think. So I think it's very imperative for Auburn. I think Auburn, both these teams need this game. So initially I was leaning towards Washington, but now I might lean towards Auburn on that 3, and they might win that game.
What's the over-under on that game?
I think it was like 48 or something like that,
Wow.
48 and a half or something.
Wow, I think I might go with over on that one. That's not very many points.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that, but but again, this is the game I feel the least confident about. Just because Auburn, after these good seasons that they have, they really don't perform well.
Yeah.
And so their defense, I believe in their defense, but that offensive line has some question marks. That run game has some question marks, and if you get in Stidham's face, that affects what he does. So I'm cringing and I'm leaning towards Auburn, but it's a really close game there.
Is Michigan playing Notre Dame week 1? Is that what I'm looking at here on this list? Or
They are. And
got
Michigan,
let's see, is that a 1.5 with a 47.5
point and a half on the road? They're playing at Notre Dame, which would have been cool to get Paul's perception on that. For the longest time, I tend to like the underdogs in those really small kind of games like that.
Yeah.
But I just think with Michigan, the way that they're coming in, I think that they really need to make a statement. So I'm kind of leaning towards Michigan in that game.
Yeah, I think Shea Patterson. I know that there's been a lot of hype around him coming from Ole Miss and all that stuff, but I think they've got a team. I really think they're going to be a lot like, I'm not comparing them to Tennessee, but I think in the fact that they're going to do a lot better than people think. They've underperformed the last several years, really, since Harbaugh's gotten there. They've underperformed.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to go with Michigan on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame actually blew them out. That's one of those games that that's a hard game to put money on right there, I tell you.
Yeah. I don't feel a blowout in that game. I think it could be something where it's like a 30 or maybe like a 24-21 kind of game, Michigan.
Yeah.
And they barely cover, but I could see it being kind of a sloppy game. And I don't really think after our team played at Notre Dame, I don't feel like that's particularly a home advantage for the Irish. I don't think their fans show out like other programs do. So I kind of like Michigan there, but that's a squeaker.
What else do we have? What other games? I'm looking through the list. Who's Florida playing?
Those are the big ones I can think of. I think they're playing some, School of the Blind or something.
Yeah, you're playing Austin Peay.
Yeah, that's whatever.
I'm trying to look through the list. There's actually some good games, or not, I wouldn't call them great games, but that aren't on Saturday. That's actually a little early. Well, let me see. What did I see on that? Isn't there a Thursday game? Central Florida,
Yes.
Connecticut. What else is out there? Friday we got Michigan State, Utah State. That'll be a blowout. Here's an interesting game. Stanford, San Diego State. I've got a 49-point over-under, and Stanford's favored by 14.5. That's a lot of points. I think San Diego State will be a better team. I'm going through the list. Is there anybody in the comment section that has have any questions on a particular game you have before we close it out?
Yeah.
I'll be watching. Somebody put Mississippi State. How will Mississippi State do this year? That's a question from John Neal. What do you think there, Couch Coach? His dad, I think he told me that went to that school, so he's kind of partial.
Yeah, I obviously, if you have a quarterback, you got a shot, right? So, you got to feel good about that.
They have a quarterback.
We'll have to see how. You have to see how he does with that new offense, that new scheme. Playing in the West is always kind of a meat grinder, but I think there's a lot of people that are very high on Mississippi State. They've done really well in recruiting here recently. So it'll be interesting to see how they make that transition, the Moorhead's offense versus Dan Mullen's offense. They got absolutely lambasted on the road against Georgia. They got lambasted by Auburn the next week. But they did put a hurting at home against LSU and gave Alabama a tough out. So they're another one of those teams that's very tough at home. But I kind of get the feeling that they're going to be about an 8-9 win team. Just A, playing in the West, B, I don't know. I think whenever you have a new coaching staff, that affects what you do. I don't feel like they're going to go 10-2 or anything like that. But I could see about a 9-win season out of them this year.
Before we let you go, I forgot this one game that's on Sunday, Miami and LSU. That's going to be a game.
Oh yeah, good one.
I think LSU's going to win that ball game. I know there's people going to call me crazy, but I think LSU's going to win that ball game straight up.
I think so too, because here's the deal. I've talked to some other people, some Georgia fans about this. I'm like, that is a vintage Mark Richt lose in a non-conference opener game that he doesn't have to win, right? Like, when Mark doesn't have to win a game, those are the games he drops in. And now I think that Mark's a better coach than Ed Orgeron, but I think a lot of people are being really, really negative on LSU. I think that Ed Orgeron has to have that game a little bit more than Mark. I mean, Mark can eat that loss and still be okay later in the year. I think LSU really has to win that game to have any kind of chance of having a decent season this year. So I like LSU. I like their defense. I think it's going to be low scoring. And yeah, I think they win that game.
Well, I'm with you on that. And I tell you what, next week we've got a special guest, a former NFL player is going to be on the show. I put all my social media stuff in the description. Oh, before we get going, Couch Coach, you started a podcast. You want to tell everybody about it and where they can find it? I put the link in the description. But kind of tell everybody what you're doing there.
I just started a kind of a podcast. It's just kind of a way to get back into it. You know, I kind of like podcasting a little bit more than doing the YouTube route for a variety of reasons. And so I started on Podbean, which is just kind of works very well with the way my phone, everything's set up. But yeah, definitely check it out. Really, I'm going to focus more on the mental parts of the game. And so as the season goes on, I'll probably do like 1 or 2 a week. I'm definitely looking more at kind of like an after show kind of deal, especially later on a Saturday night, kind of giving my thoughts on how the teams did. And so just kind of getting that immediate response to a lot of these kind of big matchups is something that I'm interested in doing. But yeah, definitely check me out on Podbean, Couch Coach, and hope you guys will click into that or do whatever you need to do there.
Well, I'm going to take all these live shows. I don't know if I'll take this one, but I'm going to start doing my live shows, all of them, and turning them into podcasts. And I'll be announcing later next week what we're going to do there. We're going to have a former Tennessee player and NFL player that punted in Super Bowl 11 on the show here real soon. He's going to be going fishing with me and the winner of the fishing trip that y'all can still buy your tickets for. They're $5 a piece with a 2-ticket minimum. All you need to do is email me at volunteerroadshow@gmail.com, the number of tickets you want. You can buy as many as you want. We've only sold 40 of them, so if you buy 3 or 4 or 5 of them, you've got a really good chance of going September 21st, the Friday before the Florida game. We're going to go with Captain Scott Manning and Tennessee River Monsters. There's another sponsor of this show, along with Allied Oil and Tire, which is an oil and tire distributor for the big trucks that we drive all across the Midwest. And I really appreciate everybody tuning in. We got a lot of great things in store. We got Tim Irwin going to go on a fishing trip next May with us. He's going to be on the show real soon, I hope, and talking about Tennessee football. He had a 14-year career in the NFL and was a great offensive tackle at my beloved Vols. So everybody, I really do appreciate y'all watching me. Things are going to get better, and we've got practically 1 more week left of talking season, and I'm going to start talking it up. So thanks for tuning in. Go Vols. We're going to a ball game, I promise you that.